Hey guys, so I saw that my previous video, for whatever reason, did quite well, so I'm deciding to set up, play part 2. A little bit earlier than I expected. But, yeah, thanks for all the support, and I guess enjoy Napoleon part 2.
Napoleon, Part 2. As first consul, Napoleon was not only actively involved with military concerns, but he also brought internal order to France. He created many institutions that exist in similar form today. Napoleon centralized the government using the administrative divisions, or départements, formed during the Revolution, and also appointed prefects who were to carry out his orders without question. In education, he created a centralized university system to license teachers and to control studies and examinations. University students, even today, are under its control. Napoleon established the Bank of France and fought inflation by tying the French franc to a gold standard. In the field of religion, he worked out a concordat with the Pope, July 15, 1801, which recognized Catholicism as the main religion of France and gave Napoleon the power to nominate bishops as well as pay their salaries in order to give him control over the religious life of the country. Napoleon was not without enemies during this period. Georges Cadoudal and the royalists who wished to re-establish the French monarchy made attempts on his life. Some enemies, such as the Duc d'Enghien of Baden, were shot. Others were deported to French Guiana. Some were brought to France for imprisonment, such as the Haitian hero Toussaint Louverture, who died in the Chateau de Joux after he was captured by the French army, which was trying to reconquer the rebellious colony. Through propaganda and manipulation, Napoleon convinced the Senate in 1804 that for reasons of security they needed to entrust the government to a hereditary emperor, himself. The Pope was persuaded to come to Paris to preside over the ceremony, where the audacious Napoleon crowned himself Emperor of France and his wife Josephine Empress. All of France was under the control of Emperor Napoleon I, who supervised every aspect of life, from strategic road building to the revival of the Comédie Française. To bind the military more closely to him, he established the Legion of Honor with its coveted white medal. "It is with baubles that men are led," Napoleon said. By 1803, the French as well as the English began to prepare again for war. England turned against France because of Napoleon's continental system, which forbade the sale of English goods in continental Europe. Napoleon had great plans to invade England by crossing the Channel, but they were scrapped when the British, under Lord Nelson, destroyed the French fleet in 1805 at the Battle of Trafalgar near Cadiz, Spain. Spain, with the aid of England, had been trying to oust the French and Napoleon's brother, Joseph, who had been appointed King of Spain. Austria and Russia joined England in an alliance against France as they wished to remove Napoleon from the European scene. The army with which Napoleon had planned to invade England was then moved to the Rhine area to confront his continental enemies at Ulm, Vienna, and Austerlitz. Austerlitz in December 1805 was one of the most brilliant victories of his his career. Prussia, too, felt threatened by Napoleon and sent soldiers trained in the tradition of Frederick the Great to confront Napoleon at Jena in October 1806. The Prussians, however, could not match the lightning-fast French troops. Napoleon easily entered their stronghold of Berlin, putting an end to the myth of Prussian invincibility. After French victories over the Russians at Eylau and Friedland in 1807, Napoleon met with Tsar Alexander I of Russia on a raft in the Nieman River, where they worked out the Treaty of Tilsit, in which France and Russia became allies. Though Napoleon dreamed of a monarchy patterned after the Roman Empire, he met increasing opposition from conquered countries that wished to maintain their own identities. Napoleon loved children in the Italian tradition and enjoyed his many nieces and nephews. However, he wanted an heir to his empire more than anything else. Since Empress Josephine could not provide him with a child, he divorced her reluctantly in order to marry Marie-Louise, daughter of Francis I of Austria, in hopes of obtaining an heir. To Napoleon's delight, a son was born to them a year later in 1811, and titled the King of Rome. After the French alliance with Russia broke up in 1812, Napoleon began his invasion of Russia. The Tsar no longer would agree to embargo English goods, which infuriated Napoleon. Yet the French invasion could not overcome one great problem. The Russians burned everything behind them as they retreated from Napoleon, so that the enemy army would have nothing to eat. For the French troops, which had not carried sufficient supplies with them, this spelled disaster. After following the retreating Russians over vast distances, playing a frustrating game of cat and mouse, Napoleon fought one indecisive battle at Borodino before entering an abandoned Moscow. The following day, much of Moscow was burned, leaving no supplies in the city for the French troops. Since the Tsar would not negotiate peace, Napoleon was forced to retreat homeward in October before the merciless Russian winter set in. But winter came early in 1812, and only 30,000 men finally straggled out of Russia. More than 500,000 perished in the Russian wasteland. The French people were very weary of war. The powers of Europe sensed that Napoleon's rule was over, but he was still dangerously ambitious and would try to strike even harder the next time if he were allowed the chance. The Allies took advantage of Napoleon's weakened position in 1814. Field Marshal Blücher of Prussia led his forces in an invasion across the border into France itself. Napoleon was able to rally temporarily at the battles of Montmirail and Chateaubert, but the European allies succeeded in entering Paris. The Allies finally forced Napoleon to abdicate his throne, and he did so in this room at the royal palace of Fontainebleau before bidding his troops farewell. After passing through the gates of Fontainebleau, he robed of his emperorship, he began the journey to his place of exile, the rocky Mediterranean island of Elba off the coast of Italy. As Emperor of Elba, Napoleon resided in the simple but comfortable Villa Napoleone. The villa is perched on a hill in the heart of Portoferraio, the capital city of Elba, where Napoleon could look out to sea. He was free to visit his country home also, the Villa dei Mulini, outside the city. Here, classic statues in the gardens and Egyptian scenes on the walls reminded him of his dreams and days of former glory. During a 10-month stay on Elba, Napoleon's sister, Pauline Borghese, visited him, as did his mother. However, his wife, Marie-Louise, would not come to Elba. His son, the King of Rome, was kept sequestered at Schönbrunn Palace in Vienna by his Austrian grandfather, and he was not allowed to see his father. This was a heartbreak for Napoleon. The idea of leaving Elba to fulfill his destiny was always foremost in the mind of Napoleon, and he finally found an opportunity to escape his rocky prison 10 months after his arrival. He returned to France with those of his men he had been allowed to keep with him, and was hailed by the people as a hero. This was the beginning of the period known as the 100 Days, a short period of time when Napoleon once again controlled the French government. The French Restoration government, headed by Louis XVIII, fled to Belgium, and Europe again prepared for war, to rid itself of Napoleon once and for all. European countries scoffed at Napoleon's requests for peace, so Napoleon had to either fight the Anglo-Prussian armies or surrender to them. Throwing caution to the winds, he invaded Belgium to confront them. But here in the fields around Waterloo, where children today play by the Butte de Lyon, the army of the British Duke of Wellington finally defeated Napoleon's forces. At the turning point in the battle, Marshal Ney, commander of the French forces, desperately requested more troops, but Napoleon hesitated to send them in until it was too late, and the battle was lost. The result was the end of the career of one of the most remarkable men the world had ever known. Napoleon placed himself at the mercy of England, whose formidable ships blocked his escape from France. He hoped that he might live the life of a squire in the English countryside. However, the English decided that he would reside in this house on the extremely remote and tiny island of St. Helena off the coast of Africa, from which Napoleon could not hope to escape. Napoleon was placed under constant surveillance on St. Helena. Before his Longwood home was ready, he resided with the Balcombe family and became good friends with Betsy, one of the Balcombe's daughters. Betsy's recollections of Napoleon's stay show him to be a friendly person who loved a good joke. Over a period of 6 years at Longwood, Napoleon's memoirs were written down by his valet Marchand, who generally glorified the Napoleonic legend. In 1821, Napoleon died from a stomach ailment, which a recent theory claims was caused by arsenic poisoning by a French noble in Napoleon's own party. Though he was first buried on St. Helena, Napoleon's remains were later moved to Paris in 1840. Even 19 years after his death, the return of the body of the emperor aroused feelings of patriotism and nostalgia for the Napoleonic era. He was put to rest in this sarcophagus at Les Invalides, finally at home with the French people he loved.